Welcome back to the Response Drivers Podcast, where we feature top marketing minds and dig into their inspiring stories. Learn how these leaders think and find big ideas to push your results and sales to the next level. Now, let's get started.
Hey, I'm Rick Rapé, host of the Response Drivers Podcast. Here we dive deep with marketing executives, experts, and innovators to uncover how they approach targeted marketing and use data-driven strategies to acquire and retain customers. We'll talk about what's working, what's changing, and how we can stay ahead in an evolving marketing landscape. This episode is brought to you by RPM Direct Marketing. RPM helps companies develop hard-hitting direct mail creative and utilize advanced testing and targeting methodologies so you can fully optimize your marketing performance and to drive more sales and exceed growth expectations. With a proven track record, RPM delivers smarter, more profitable direct mail solutions so you can turn your direct mail programs into a predictable, efficient sales channel. Visit rpmdm.com to learn more. I'm really looking forward to learning from my guest today. I'm thrilled to have Maria Botta on the show. Maria is an accomplished business strategist and fractional CMO with deep expertise in marketing leadership, brand growth, and business scaling for startup companies. After earning her MBA in global management from Thunderbird, she has been dedicated to empowering founders through high-impact marketing strategies and business advisory. A recognized mentor, strategist, and global connector, Maria is passionate about driving innovation, identifying growth opportunities, and building resilient brands in fast-paced, evolving markets. Thank you so much for joining me on Response Drivers today, Maria.
Thanks for having me, Rick. It's my pleasure to be here.
I want to jump right in and ask you some questions about your career journey and your background.
Let's do it.
So, what shaped your approach early on in your career to marketing and business strategy?
Well, my first career was actually in film and television, where I was a producer and executive producer. And after spending, 16, 17 years doing that, I really wanted to pivot. And that's when I went back to graduate school and got my MBA, as you mentioned. And that started a whole trajectory for me. As I graduated from business school, I started more, I kind of made a manifesto for myself. I call it a manifesto, where I detailed what kind of companies I wanted to work with, what kind of work I wanted to do, and the kinds of people that I wanted to work with, and how I wanted to work. One of the things I said was, one of the things I wrote was I really wanted to work with companies who were doing good works in the world, meaning companies that were giving back and doing things that were innovative, different, and benefiting humankind. And that's really been very aligned to the types of clients and engagements I've had so far. So I kind of started with the premise of what I wanted to do, and those companies sort of came to me. And that's sort of how it all started.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah.
And I know you've done a lot of work with startups and early stage companies. So
Right.
tell us a little bit about that and your experience in working with those types of companies.
Right. So interestingly enough, many of those companies that are startups really have the intention of going through and really creating a positive impact in the world. I really do believe in impact, that companies that really have a clear vision towards impact. And so that's why the startup space for me is really so interesting and exciting. You often find companies that are in there who are innovating beyond what we do today, imagining ways of doing business that don't exist yet, right? That they're projecting or they're imagining. So to me, that's the most exciting space to be in. It's also kind of hectic and never the same day, never the same minute twice, let's say. Not the same day. I would say the same hour twice. It's very exciting from that perspective because it's always evolving, always changing. As a senior marketer, I have an opportunity to really make a big imprint and a big, a big imprint on the work that these companies are doing, how they're getting the work out,
Mhm.
who, understanding their target audience and really getting it out there.
what are some of the common marketing mistakes that you have run into as you're working with these early stage companies? I mean, do you run into a lot of the same types of issues over and over again?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
So, because but these issues are true not just in startups, but also in mature companies, more mature companies.
Okay.
One of the main things I find, because I work mostly with technology-oriented companies, most founders are technologists.
Mm,
They're not finance people, they're not marketers, they're not operations. And so one of the mistakes I find is that there's not a marketer or a marketing leader in the founding house, you know? And so
mm,
that
mhm.
means to me that marketing is not important, or they haven't thought about it, they haven't considered it. And so
Right.
by the time they bring somebody like me on, it's like, what? What? Instead of, when you're embedded in the founding leadership, then you can have a lot more say and a lot more impact, like I said.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Do you find that founders being technologists that they want to talk about the features of their products a lot more than they need to, or do you think that people are they able to focus on the needs of the consumer
Well, that's an
enough?
interesting question. So I'm a mentor in Techstars Global, which is
Ah,
an accelerator program. And I get
mm-hmm.
to meet a lot of founders through that.
Mm,
And one of the first things I ask is, how many interviews have you done with your target, who you think your target audience is going to be? And I
mm-hmm.
can't tell you how many times people tell me, well, I know because I know. And it's like, no, you don't know. Do you even know
Right.
if this is actually a product that you can get traction for? Is
Mm,
this something you think it's a great idea, but do other people think it's a great idea? So to me,
mm,
that's one of the biggest mistakes or challenges that founders have when they
mm-hmm.
start out. It's like they just think it's a great idea many times, and of course, their mothers and their wives or husbands have told them, "Yes, it's a great idea," but there is no proof. There's no business case, for the idea.
Right, right.
That's why accelerators are so important, because you get to
Yeah,
test an idea
yeah,
oftentimes in a minimal
yeah,
risk.
yeah. Well, it's totally relatable to me because we've taken on several startup clients over the years, and it certainly is interesting because sometimes they want us to put all the features and features uh, forward and list all that out in our direct mail campaigns, and we have to kind of come back and say, really, we need to talk to the consumer about what they need and what they are looking for, what their emotions are, their situation, and the product is not going to be featured in the same exact way. We need to talk to the benefits and not necessarily the features. So
Yeah. I think
that's
oftentimes
interesting.
founders don't understand, like, they don't understand that their audience wants to know what's in it for them.
Right. And people are looking for that in marketing messaging
Yeah.
right up front. It has to be
Clear.
really clear and like super quick. Otherwise, they're on to the next thing. We're all we're all bombarded with too much marketing all day long, and so we have
Yeah.
to learn to filter it out. Really.
And make it simple and easy for people to digest and understand.
Right.
And that they
Right.
can, you said it very clearly, that they can attach an emotional connection to it, because at the end of the day, that's how we sell anything, is through an emotional connection.
Yeah, there's always an emotional need or emotional trigger, and then we back it up with a lot of rational features and benefits to justify the decision that we've already made.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think. Well, let me ask you one more question about working with founders and especially startup founders. I mean, I've had my experiences with startup founders, and I know how challenging they can be. But how do you balance ambition with realistic execution plans?
Great question, because that's one of the first questions I ask founders. It's, okay, what are your business goals? So we can
Mm,
align any strategy we create, anything we do moving forward to those business goals, right? Well,
mhm.
I want to sell 1 million widgets tomorrow. Well, there are many things you need to consider before we drive that demand. I find oftentimes people are not prepared from a capacity perspective or operations perspective. It's like,
Mhm.
yes, what if we sold 1 million widgets? Can you deliver?
Mhm.
And those are
Mhm.
big questions that I ask. I don't challenge, I ask questions. And I
Mhm.
think by asking the right questions, people can think through it.
Mhm.
It's just guiding them to think through it.
Yeah.
Because sometimes they just don't think about capacity.
Right. Right.
And that is a big error, because if you fail on delivering correctly, you've lost a client and possibly more.
Right. That's so interesting. In your experience, what separates brands that are able to scale successfully, or startups that are able to scale successfully, from ones that stall? Do you see any commonalities there?
A lot of times it's luck. I'm going to say that.
Oh wow. Yeah.
Luck, the correct network, the correct positioning,
Hmm.
clarity, I think, is the most important thing. When you go talk to an investor, or when you talk to bringing on team members, when you talk to whatever the situation is,
Hmm.
clarity in your message has got to be right on. You can't have a whiff of BS. You got to be clear and honest 100% of the time. And I think that is one of the things that distinguishes um, successful startups.
Yeah.
Sometimes founders just like to blow hot air, and it's just like, no, sorry, but I can see right through that.
It's funny that resonates with me as well, because we've definitely worked with us. We've worked with a couple of software companies over the years that have had some really big, impressive systems that for business, for managing business and things like that. And they had a lot of bells and whistles and a lot of components to them, and they were just super hard to explain. And you couldn't go out and like quickly grab people's attention with something that they could latch onto. It was more, we had to really try to educate people as to what this does, this and this and this and this and this. And it's like, just pick one thing and do it really well, I think would have gotten them a lot more traction than trying to sell it as something that does everything, um, all at the same
You,
time. So
but you could say, hey, this thing does everything that 25 other products that you spend money on does. You could have said
yeah.
something like that, right?
Yeah, that's true. There's
And that's
probably a way
clear.
to
Yeah.
to make it more clear for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the difficult part that we sometimes we face as a direct marketing agency, is that we have to take the brand positioning that they've come up with, and sometimes it's like, well, is that really perfect or not? I'm not sure. So
Yeah.
we like to work with people like you who are guiding them to really build the brand positioning that needs to be in place.
Yeah.
Um, how important do you think direct response marketing is in the early stages of building a startup company these days?
Direct response can be extremely effective, and it's cost effective too. Done right, if you know who your target audience is and
Mhm.
you know exactly what they want to see and how they want it delivered, um, it's super effective.
Mhm.
I think I was telling you before we started the program at a one very effective program that I did reaching out. It's an advisory firm that works with generational handover or sales of high end agricultural enterprises. So
Okay.
think vineyards, or you know um, enterprise level tomato farms, things like that. And
Okay. Yeah.
so a lot of times, what happens, they get handed down generationally, but the kids don't want to, the grandkids don't want to take it over. They're not interested.
Yeah.
So, but it's very valuable, and it's also a very emotional thing.
Oh yeah.
So, working with an advisory company that does advisement to these particular individuals, We created a beautiful package. It was beautifully designed, very to the point. It was interactive because we incorporated QR codes. We did a lot of really interesting things so people could really get a very full picture. It wasn't just a written package, but it was also very interactive. It was very
That's
successful.
great.
Yeah, very highly personalized also to each. It was different than doing like a mass direct mail. It was the opposite of that. It's very, very highly tailored and customized.
Yeah, and it sounds like it wasn't a cheap approach to put together either. It
No.
was probably pretty expensive.
No, because, the direct mail piece was really the start of it. And again, as I said, it was very interactive with videos and and the videos were created to that individual.
Okay.
So that
Personalized
highly
videos with QR code,
yeah.
personalized QR codes.
Mhm.
That's a
Yeah, it was-
powerful combination for sure.
Oh, it was
Yeah,
beautiful. It was not
that's
for anything,
amazing.
but it was really a beautiful, beautiful campaign that we put together.
Yeah, and you got a high response rate.
We did. We did. But, that requires a lot of research too.
Yeah.
We researched very carefully. We knew what the hot buttons were for each and every one of our audience. So, it's very highly curated in that way, but super
Yeah.
successful.
Yeah. We've definitely done some campaigns like that ourselves in the B2B space where we wanted to get through for a very high ticket item. And we've sent some things in the mail, like in FedEx packages or, big dimensional mailers. And yeah, they definitely get attention and you definitely can get through and talk to people if they've received it. And it can be a very, very effective strategy.
Yeah.
Um, Well, I know that you're currently traveling and you're a digital nomad, and I'm just curious about how is that? How has it been to work and travel at the same time?
I love it. It's a very exciting for me because it gives me the opportunity. One of the things that I wrote when I graduated from in my personal manifesto was that every year I wanted to spend time learning about business in other countries because business culture is very diverse,
Mm,
very different. In
mhm,
fact, today I had a conversation with somebody about, I have my own personal brand, but in parts of Europe, this is not the way people do it. It's unheard of. So
mm.
it's interesting, right? So every day I'm learning new things. And that part I find really exciting. Like at the end of the month, I'll be going to Estonia to a technology conference there. I've lived in South Africa, learned about macadamia nut farms. So I've been able to really just look at the world from a different perspective and constantly learning.
Yeah, that's exciting. Well, I'm quite jealous of that lifestyle. I think I might have to explore that and follow you into the digital nomad
It's easier for me
space.
because I have no attachments,
Uh,
at the moment. So yeah, it's
well,
super.
these days with Zoom and everything, it's pretty easy to travel around. I must say.
No, listen, wherever there's good internet connection, I can make it happen.
Yeah.
You
Well,
know, so
that's exciting. Well, another quick question for you about startups. I'm going to bring it back to startups a little bit.
yep.
When you're getting started with startups, I mean, what are some of the things that you have to focus on to drive response? I know most startups have a very limited budget. So, what are some of the levers that or channels that you go to first, and which ones do you see the best returns from?
Yeah, I mean, probably the same that, larger companies use. Direct mail, whenever possible, obviously has a really good ROI. Sometimes that's not possible.
Mm,
Um, Email marketing is another channel that it's effective and it has a good ROI. In some cases, social media has been excellent,
mm,
even in B2B scenarios, certainly on the consumer side, depending where the demographic of your audience is, it really speaks to the channel that will be successful for you. You
I
know,
see.
like if your demographic is older, I always tend to swing it towards Facebook. If it's middle, Instagram, and certainly the other photo apps. And then, of course, the big one, TikTok, which is the content uh, monster, but very effective, you
Yeah.
know. So I think it's about creating really effective content, a lot of it, and see what sticks sometimes,
Mm.
sometimes, and digital offers you that ability, to do it. So I really like to mix it up. I like to go between analog, like I call it analog old school marketing, and
Mm-hmm.
digital. Like, for example, I'm working with a company now, we're doing digital billboards,
Mm. What's that
which
like? What's a digital billboard like?
they're billboards like in the old
Oh,
traditional format, but they're
sure.
not paper, they're
They're
digital.
moving.
Yeah, they're moving. But
That's
right, I hadn't done a billboard campaign in a really long time, and so this was
hmm
really fun to do, and we can change the creative quickly and often.
mm.
So it keeps things fresh.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Well, being from the Pacific Northwest, there's a lot of rules against billboards in certain places. So like there's not that many billboards around, although in some places, um, there are exceptions to the rules, and we see moving billboards and things like that. So it's definitely not something that I think of very, very much, but I know it's a big channel.
It is. And it's something that sort of kind of died out.
Mm.
But you can use it very effective. Again, changing out the creative often, uh,
hmm
using QR codes even, I thought QR codes were going to die a long time ago. And I was like, yeah, no, QR code. And I'm just always surprised how they
Yeah.
keep becoming more and more integrated and so
I think
useful.
COVID changed that, right? Like a lot of people figured out how to use QR codes for their restaurant menus, and
Yeah.
like I think COVID really helped QR codes catch on and helped everybody understand what do you do with those.
Oh, yeah.
We were doing a lot of testing with QR codes before that, and years before that, in fact, and we
Yeah.
found that like mostly it was marketing people that were interested in what a QR code is pointing to, and beyond that not everybody understood it, but
Yeah. It's like now with VR and AR, right? Being able to integrate technology into our campaigns is really exciting. For some
yeah,
clients, it's the perfect fit.
yeah. Well, and there's exciting things that we can do these days with the integration of direct mail marketing and social media, streaming TV, streaming radio.
Yep.
We can hit the same households at the same people in the same households with multiple different things kind of all at the same time. So there's really like a symphony effect around a prospect rather than, and that can be based on a predictive targeting model that
Yes.
we've developed based on a customer profile rather than just guessing at like who should we send this to. So there's
Exactly.
a lot more data and a lot more targeting capabilities than ever before, which is
There are.
a revolutionizing a lot of things. But
Yeah, there are. There's definitely a lot of ways to understand your customer. To me, the
yeah.
most fundamental part is understanding your customer from interviews. Really knowing your customer from really talking to them and having a constant feedback loop. That to me is
hmm
super important.
Yeah. Do you encourage the founders and the people that you work with in your who are your clients to actually do that research themselves, or to hire like a research firm to go out and do interviews with customers?
We do it. I always recommend to do it in several different ways. QR codes again. For example, if you're in a brick and mortar scenario, having
hmm
that QR code there where people can respond,
hmm
to a 3-question survey or
Mhm.
submit a Google review or do any number of things is super important.
Mhm.
But I think there's a number of different ways. There's the big research, right? The big stuff where you do, the old school quantitative and qualitative work. But
Mhm.
then there's also, you should be having feedback from your customers or your audience on a bunch of little touch points.
Mhm.
And so, not just the big stuff, but in smaller ways too. So a
That's
combination,
interesting.
I would say. Yeah, big syndicated research is expensive, quantitative and qual can, really dig into a marketing budget for a startup.
Yeah, I bet it does.
Yeah.
Um, what trends do you see shaping the future of marketing for startups in the next, say, 5 years? We've already talked about some of them. What other trends come to mind?
Well, I mean, AI, obviously.
Yeah, AI is the hot topic for sure.
Yeah,
Are you
and
seeing companies using AI more and more just to develop content, or what are some of the other ways that they're using it?
I'd say probably content development, although one of my clients really loves Grok. And every
Mm.
time we have a one-on-one meeting, he's like, I talked to Grok. And I
Like
I
they,
think
they
what's exciting about AI is that it can, I say right now where we are with AI is that AI is better with humans and humans are better with AI.
yeah,
We're not at the point where, AI is going to gobble everybody's lunch yet.
right, right,
And because AI is very flawed also, there's all kinds of problems with AI with, being skewed and all kinds of different things, have
sure.
biases and all that. So,
Mhm.
but I do like the idea of AI impacting in a way where it kind of stretches you to think a little bit, maybe something you hadn't considered.
Yeah,
And so I
no,
really, I think that is the cool thing. Um, Also, I think there's new problems that are coming out of technology that people
mm,
need to find ways to solve, not just
mm,
cybersecurity issues.
yeah,
But this, machine learning ML models that are skewed and biased that need to be. Somebody said something the other day on one of the podcasts I listened to, which I thought was so interesting, that maybe uh, machine learning models should be geographically or segmented,
mm,
meaning that you don't use the same, because right now the models are all coming out of the Western world, right? Or
mm,
maybe in some cases in Asia, but we're really
mm,
not seeing the models emerge from other places. So that means that they're lacking inputs that would be
yeah,
valuable in other regions. So maybe we need to think about them more on a regional level. There's a lot of
yeah,
interesting problems that are begging for solutions, that come
yeah.
up. We are evolving into this direction that I find fascinating in potential businesses.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. When we build predictive models for our clients, we usually are doing it in just the US because we're really focused on mailing in the US. I can imagine trying to use a model then like globally. That would be incredibly challenging, I'm sure, because all the data sources are different. But even within the US, we find that like compiled
Yeah.
data is different regionally.
Yeah.
It can be very different in the West Coast versus the East Coast, or
Absolutely.
South
Or the middle
versus the
of the
North,
country.
or
Exactly.
yeah.
And
So
that's a really interesting problem and way to figure out a way to solve it is I think so interesting.
yeah.
How do you guys handle that? Curious. Now I'm turning the tables asking you questions.
Well, we look at every situation kind of individually, trying to figure out what's the best way to approach the targeting challenges, and then we let the data guide us. Once we start testing things, then we become very data driven, and we look at where does this work and where is this not working, and then we'll try to address those issues. We have one client, for example, that we built a predictive model for, but the predictive model kind of sits on top of a segmentation system that we built. So we already figured out like there's ways to segment their market into different areas or different types of customers depending on a few different variables. And then we put on top of a couple of those segments a predictive model that works really well within the segment, but we wouldn't really try to apply it to the other segments necessarily because, well, that's where predictive modeling kind of falls apart, is when people say, I want to profile my customers and then I want to use that to predict direct mail performance.
Yeah.
Well, it's two different things because maybe not all of your customers were acquired with direct mail. So we have to
Correct.
make sure that we're building the model off the right thing and using it for the right thing, and making
Right.
sure those are matching.
Right.
So yeah, every situation is different, but it's the possibilities are more and more endless all these days.
Yeah.
It's like,
Yeah.
and we used to have to do predictive modeling with a team of statisticians and a
I know.
substantial budget. And now with AI and machine learning, you can do things very, very quickly. And
Yes.
it's much more accessible for even small companies, even startups.
Yes.
So
Absolutely. Absolutely.
well, let's see. I want to ask you a couple more questions and then we can wrap it
Okay.
up.
Right.
Is there a favorite business or marketing book that has helped to shape your thinking?
Well, I'll tell you a book that changed my life.
Oh,
Um,
do tell.
so at the time when I was considering graduate school, because I went back to graduate school and did an executive program, so it was a little bit later in my track in my professional life.
Mhm.
Somebody gave me, and I was really in the creative field, even though I was a producer, which I was in the financial, but I was really in a creative field. And I thought, well, nobody's going to want me to go. Nobody's going to take me in a business, degree, right?
Mhm.
And somebody handed me Daniel Pink's book, A Whole New Mind. And so reading that book, which said basically the world belongs to the creatives, which
Mm.
I kind of agree with. And this notion of left and right brain, and what does that mean? And it really opened up my eyes and kind of changed my thinking on, yes, I probably know a lot more about business than I think I do. And I probably can bring more to it than maybe people with more traditional backgrounds.
Interesting. Wow, that's
Yeah.
great.
And Daniel Pink changes my life all the time. I mean, his writing is amazing. It really
Yeah,
resonates
for
with
sure.
me. Yeah.
Yeah, he's got some great books for sure.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
What's the best piece of advice that you've ever received in your career so far?
It's a piece of advice I received and I often give. Listen.
One word advice. Very smart. Well, that's
Very
fantastic.
unique.
Thank you for that. And with that, I think I'll wrap up for today. So
Hey, Rick,
thank
thank
you
you so much.
thank you very much for this opportunity to learn from you. And where can people learn more about you and get in touch with you?
I'm on LinkedIn at Maria Botta MBA. I'm also have a website, mariabotta.com, and that's BOTTA.com. You can reach out to me there. Yeah, LinkedIn is always a great way to connect with me.
Awesome. All right. Well, thank you again. And we hope to talk to you again soon.
That's a wrap for this episode of Response Drivers. Thanks for tuning in. If you found today's insights valuable, make sure to subscribe so you never miss an episode. And if you're enjoying the show, we'd love it if you left a review. Got a question or a topic you'd like us to cover? Just drop us a message at responsedrivers@rpmdm.com. Until next time, keep driving response and making your marketing work smarter.